to the
Yeah.
cloud. I am so excited to have you all here with me. I'm so excited to have amazing Michelle Talbert as my co-host today. And we're going to talk about the new LaVilla and investing in our historic commercial districts and community spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the slides and we will get started. Okay, so the new LaVilla is the project. This is going to be a new entrepreneurship center and co-working space in Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to talk about that, introduce ourselves and talk about that, make a case for why we should invest in these up and coming projects, talk about the who, the what, the where, the why, and then a little bit about the platform Vesterr and crowdfunding through Vesterr itself. And then we're going to talk about why co-working spaces are so important, why this is a place that we can start to see more of, in terms of how businesses are operating today in co-working spaces and the vision behind her power space. Michelle is going to talk about why this is so important and why she decided to own a co-working space. And then we're going to talk about why community reinvestment crowdfunding matters. So I am Dr. V, Valicia Dunbar. Michelle and I met as business advisors for Goldman Sachs. I didn't even know that she was in Fort Lauderdale with the co-working space. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. My co-working space closed. I initially was leasing it. We had a building collapse, blah, blah, blah. And I found this amazing opportunity to purchase a building in downtown. I've been working in business consulting, business development for more than 20 years. Of course, business advisor. I'm also certified with the state of Florida as a business technical assistance provider, working with people with disabilities who want to start their businesses, so helping them to develop their concepts and their business plans. My doctorate's in organizational crisis management. So when COVID hit, that was just such an important opportunity to show businesses how to navigate through that space and pivot. I used to work for the government, so I like to throw that in there. DOD, my husband's retired Air Force. So I worked for Air Force and Army Medical Command at one point, and I'm published. I wrote a book about women in leadership called Diva Decisions, and just encouraging us to use the power that we have to speak our voice and to create change around it. So, Michelle, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourself. You are on mute.
I try to be quiet and then I forget I'm be in my quiet mode. Hey Karen. So I'm excited. Thank you so much, Dr. V, for inviting me to be here. Y'all can read the screen. So basically, what I will say is that I'm a recovering corporate attorney. The first entrepreneurial thing I did actually was working with someone who's on this call, and her name is LaWanda Studevant. And we worked together. She was my mentor in residential real estate back in 2006. I kind of stuck my toe into what would it be like to be a realtor. And she really guided me. And I learned so much from that experience, both about entrepreneurship, amazing mentorship, and the value of not just having residential property, but having investment property. And so the importance of dirt, right? And so after that, went back, continued my day job because that was not for me. I am not the agent of the year for sure, right? But I just had so much fun walking around the houses. I'm like, oh yeah, right, you want to buy it, right? So that's not a good business model. But at any rate, so I went on to continue to practice law. In 2012, I left full-time practice of corporate law in Washington, D.C. And for the last 13 years, I have worked as a business consultant, business advisor. In January 2020, I opened a co-working space called Her Power Space, Women Forward, Men Welcoming in South Florida near Fort Lauderdale, and opened that January 2020. Everybody on here is old enough to remember what happened in March 2020. And so March 31st, I was locking the doors and heading up to DC because if the world was going to end, I was going to be with my babies. And so that business continued. It was a very rocky, rough 4.5 year period. And last May, thankfully, blessfully, I was able to sell it to 3 of our members. And they are continuing to have it flourish. And that legacy makes me so happy. All 3 Black women owners of the next iteration of Her Power Space, same logo and everything, right? And
Oh, very
I now have moved as of January of this year to New Orleans, Louisiana, and I am a business consultant based on the campus of Xavier, I call it University, which is an HBCU. So I am looking forward to this conversation tonight. There's just so much meat about what Dr. V is doing, what all of you can do. And the one thing I want to say before we get into the conversation is that I hope you're here with 2 hats on. One, as a potential investor, and we're going to talk about why no matter what your income level is, you can invest in in businesses that are developing, in property, right, in a collective way. And also, to the extent that you're an entrepreneur or you are someone who is building from the dirt yourself and looking for investors. So please keep an ear tuned and ask questions, like make this super interactive for us. Ask questions so that we can be sure that we're getting you the value that you deserve for your time here. Thank you. 7 o'clock on the East Coast on a whatever night this is. And also to think about how you can raise funds. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. And you can read my credentials, lawyer, business school, all that stuff.
yeah.
And
So,
mommy and Grammy. That's the most important
oh,
thing.
of
And to
course.
my almost PhD daughter, she graduates with her PhD in November of this year.
Congratulations, Mom. Congratulations. And Michelle is at a conference right now, so that's why she doesn't know what to tell her.
No, I'm in
She's been
Orlando
traveling.
somewhere. I don't know what's going on.
But I love the fact that you called her power space woman forward, men welcoming. And so, we always want to, just stress that men are always welcome in our spaces. So we're all about supporting each other and helping each other. If anyone on the call would like to introduce themselves, come off camera and just introduce yourself, that would be great. Or you can post in the chat where you're calling in from. I'm always curious about that. And what would you be interested in kind of taking away today? Before I move forward, anyone would like to come off mute and introduce yourself to the group?
Kiana.
Yes, Kiana.
So, good evening. My name is Kiana Romeo. I'm excited to be here. I love Michelle. I've been following her and her work for many years now. And so I was so excited when she posted this opportunity on LinkedIn. And I'm here because I'm looking for investment opportunities. I'm currently working on getting my angel investor accreditation. And so just really looking on ways that I can, invest in businesses that align with me and my passions and my vision.
Thank you, Kiana. I
And
appreciate
I'm
you
in
being
Tampa,
here.
Florida. Okay.
All right, right down the street. Anyone else?
Our
Okay,
sister
feel free.
Karen says she's here from Southern
Hi,
Cali and she just wants to
Karen.
hear and learn more. Hey, Karen.
Standing out, Karen. Thank you for being here. So I'll start to talk about the new LaVilla. So this, again, was a vision of mine. I don't know if everyone was on the call when I mentioned that, I have a co-working space here in Jacksonville. The ceiling collapsed. I was leasing to own it, and then saw this opportunity to purchase a building in one of our historic Black commercial districts in downtown Jacksonville. So it is called LaVilla, and my project is called the New LaVilla Entrepreneurship Center, because I wanted to be the new hub for business owners to come back to LaVilla and start to invest in that community. What I decided to do was, in order to complete the build out, we had it historically landmarked. And so we have an opportunity here to preserve the historic features of that building, and also to bring back its original use. It was originally the Will Hotel, and upstairs owned by Fannie Harvey, an African-American proprietor. She operated the hotel upstairs, and then downstairs were the commercial districts and commercial spaces. And we're pretty much keeping that same footprint. So this is our opportunity to renovate a historic landmark hotel and mixed use project in downtown Jacksonville. And we're using the platform Vesterr, Vesterr, as our crowdfunding portal. So for those of you who don't know where, Karen, do you know where you know where Jacksonville is, right? Well, I found that some people just need to kind of remember that it's not in North Carolina, Jacksonville. We are at the intersection of I-10 connecting California, the Pacific to the Atlantic. So our east-west intersection, and then our north-south intersection is I-95 connecting New England to Florida. So we're at the intersection of two major interstates between the US, north and south, east and west. What I also like to point out is that we are in the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. And so heritage tourism, cultural tourism, the destination for that, Jacksonville has the largest group of Gullah Geechee descendants. I am a Gullah Geechee descendant. And so the history within itself speaks to so many people who are living around the country and interested in bringing back these corridors. So a brief history before I get into the campaign. So LaVilla was founded in 1866 by 35 Black Union soldiers. And so part of what we want to do is to have a tribute to these original founders of the city. And so on the exterior wall, we're thinking about how we can make that exterior wall a tribute to these original soldiers. It was known as the Harlem of the South. It was also home of the Colored Man's Railroad in LaVilla. Many people don't know it was where James Weldon Johnson was born. He's the author of Lift Every Voice and Sing. He was also the principal of Stanton High School, which was where the segregated high school was located 2 blocks away from us. And so a lot of blues history, a lot of jazz history, etc. So for a crowdfunding campaign, one of the things we have to demonstrate, or to potential investors is, what are the market drivers? Why would someone want to invest in not only the project itself, but the area that it's located in? And for the past 2 years, LaVilla in downtown Jacksonville has started to become a major investment area. So far, we have about $1 billion already committed and invested in LaVilla to bring it back. And that is just the beginning. We also have projects like the stadium renovation. We are home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so we're bringing the 4 seasons here. So within the next 3 to 5 years, downtown is going to look totally different. And we're going to start to have the traffic, the tourism, the visits, and the investment of individuals to support that. So we will be LaVilla will be the biggest destination in Jacksonville, downtown Jacksonville, by 2028. When they put our I-95 through it, they tore down a lot of homes, a lot of commercial real estate that used to be the home of more than 500 Black-owned businesses within the district of LaVilla. And so all of that disinvestment, the area in decline, but now they're bringing homes and residential units back, as well as those commercial centers. And so some of the larger investments that you see are on the right-hand side. Uptown LaVilla is in progress right now, 80 million. Gateway Jacks is another project that's already underway. JTA invested 57 million in the Regional Transportation Center at LaVilla. They wanted to make sure that that name was anchored to their space. And they just finished a $3 million project for Lift Every Voice and Sing Park. And all of this is within walking distance of the project that we're working on. They just finished the townhomes a couple of years ago, so we have new townhomes and new apartment buildings as well. The big news that just dropped is now the University of Florida is going to have a huge graduate campus there, and that graduate campus is opening within next year. So everyone is very excited about that. Again, it's within walking distance of the new LaVilla. And so Jacksonville, to make it even better and to give more economic incentive, is one of the Urban Land Institute's supernova cities, meaning that it's one of 5 cities in the US that is experiencing rapid business and economic growth in the country. We have low unemployment, we don't have a state income tax, so investing in a project in Jacksonville makes sense. Now, as far as the project goes, why do we choose to bring about a co-working space? And so Michelle and I are in alignment with that, in that co-working spaces are going to continue to trend upward. You know, going to work every day, working in an office is the old model. Freelancing, remote work is the new model. And so the data shows, we looked at Statista and some of the data to support our case, that shows that in Jacksonville alone, we have approximately 5,000 to 9,200 customers looking for co-working locations, and we don't have enough assets to complete that. So this is one of the reasons why we are excited to not only be in Jacksonville at this time, but also to offer this business model. Our unique value proposition is that we're focusing on the co-working and wellness niche. We have the residential live-work unit for members and the public. We also will bring in cultural programming. We have the retail coffee shop area. And we also have meeting space. We are across the street from the courthouse, which receives 1.1 million visitors per month. And so we want to be able to cater to those boutique weddings and professionals that are coming out of that space. So our unique customers are entrepreneurs who are interested in culture, sustainability, and mission-driven collaborative programs. So this is just a snapshot of all of the other destinations and attractions that are around LaVilla. The convention center, again, walking distance. Transportation center, walking distance. Fort Hatch is where the Union soldiers were stationed. And so that's behind us 2 blocks, and there's a marker there. There are about 13 markers in LaVilla itself. The Masonic Lodge is adjacent to us. And the old Stanton High School I mentioned before is 3 blocks on Ashley Street, which was the main thoroughfare. We're on Broad Street, which is the main thoroughfare coming into LaVilla, and then the cross street is Ashley. So we're just perfectly centered in this historic district. This is what the building looks like currently. The darker red brick building is the Masonic Lodge. Past that Masonic Lodge is the old Richmond Hotel, which was one of the segregated hotels owned by a female entrepreneur there. That hotel is currently vacant. It's targeted for renovation. The building that is on the end of our strip has already been renovated. The one in the middle, we're trying to acquire as well. But this is the only intact block that still remains in LaVilla. This is our future rendering. So what you see here is that mural on the left that we want to make it a tribute to the Buffalo Soldiers. So in my mind, it's going to be, you know, horses and some soldiers charging, something exciting with the flag. I've already started wearing my paraphernalia, and you know, I have on my sleeve the Buffalo Soldier patch. So we'll have merchandise available to bring in tourists and attract people to the area. This is the street view entering Broad Street. So you'll see the courthouse on the right, and then the walkway there is going to be green eventually, or a green walkway nearby, because the Heritage Trail will circle around the building and come out on the other side on the Masonic Lodge. So people walking traffic in addition to courthouse traffic is who we're targeting. On the bottom left-hand side is the future rendering of the cultural park. So it's a 3-acre park that they're developing to make it a tribute to justice, social justice type themes. So you'll also have this huge 3-acre park right across the street as well. So the opportunities are tremendous. Most of the investors are institutions and huge developers. We are an independent developer that is trying to compete with these larger, deep pockets of investors that are coming in. But we think that it's so important to have community ownership in these spaces. And that is our position and our approach, is how do we start to reclaim and reinvest in these spaces collectively as a group, and to start to do that around the country. So this is the mixed use rendering of the space. So just All of this is also located on the website. So again, retail coffee, co-working, and meeting spaces and conference rooms is going to be the makeup. But in terms of events and planning, cultural events, speakers, poetry, everything that speaks to what LaVilla was is what we're going to bring back. The projected timeline, we are currently raising again on Vesterr, $1.2 million. So far, we haven't raised anything on Vesterr. We have pledges. So one of the ladies that closed a couple of months ago, she raised her 1 million, told me a secret. She said, you need a closer. So I'm actively looking for a closer that is familiar with the platform, who's also an investor, and who understands the passion and the mission behind the project. Sorry about that. So the target is groundbreaking January, no later than June 2026, Q2, 12 months of construction. It is a complete renovation. We have to work with the Historic Commission and Downtown Investment Authority to preserve the historic features of the site. Once we finish the build out and open in 2027, it will be 1 year of operations before any potential investors will start to see dividends paid back to them through the operations. What we're offering now is an opportunity to have equity ownership in the project at the 4 investment levels that you see here. You also receive founding membership perks, and those are also listed on the website, and I have a screenshot here. But this is a snapshot of the potential, the use of the property, the demand, why Jacksonville, but really the potential return on investment. We are going to exercise an equity refinance exit. So once the building has been renovated, whatever the new valuation is, you will have a percentage of equity in the project. And so what that looks like, we don't know, we can't predict. The value of the property will go up, but we don't know what that marker is. So, we show an illustration of what the potential returns could be, but there's no guarantee at the end of the day until we get to that point. What I wanted to do here was just to show an exit comparison of a refinance. Again, we're not offering a sale exit, but because I kept getting questions around that, this is the illustration of what that could potentially look like. However, this is based on a refi at 1.5 million. We have the simple agreement for future equity is the instrument that we're using with the valuation discount of 20%. So that would give a $10,000 investor under a 1% equity ownership, and that would be the break-even point for that investor. They would keep the equity in the project, but there wouldn't be a cash return unless there was a sale. And we, again, our exit is to refinance the building and keep the equity in it, and then to offer dividends at the back end of it to get some income out of it. And this illustration is for all levels. And so the 50,000 illustration here at a 1.5 valuation will give a roughly 4% equity in the property. And again, the cash out options are there as well. There are opportunities because LaVilla is in an empowerment zone. It is in a qualified hub zone, and you may qualify for new market tax credits. So this is here just for information only for you to ask questions to your attorney and to your accountant. And of course, the founding member incentives that we're offering are all available in here as well. And so this is the screenshot of what that page looks like. You do not pay an additional amount. This is just for people who are not investors, those amounts who just want to be listed as a founding member. All of the investment perks are listed underneath that. But if you come in at 10, 15 as an equity investor, you get whatever level is appropriate for that. Any questions for me? quick and painless. So for people that have just one-on-one questions, I do have one-on-one sessions that Q&A sessions that I hold on Wednesdays. So I will put the link for that in the chat. But if anyone has any questions now or are curious, I can definitely answer questions before I turn it over to Michelle to talk about her experience. Let's see here. Okay, Michelle. So that is my link in the chat for anyone who would like to just have a follow-up meeting and ask more detailed questions. On Vesterr.com, there are a lot of questions that have already been answered that are posted there. I highly recommend, even if you don't invest, that you just get comfortable with these platforms, these crowdfunding platforms and how they work, because, you know, this won't be the last time, I'm sure, if you're interested, that you'll see a funding portal, and there are different types of funding portals. So this one is the only one that I found that was owned and by an African-American female, like myself. And so, you know, we're supporting each other wholeheartedly to raise these funds and to get the word out. So I would turn it over to Michelle now to share her experience.
Vesterr, Karen, Vesterr.
Yes, I can type in there.
Thank you so much, Dr. V. You know, I think that segue of exactly who owns the platform that she's using is the perfect segue to this part of the conversation, because, you know, I'm gonna date myself, but FUBU, right? For us, by us, and if you want, you don't have to share the screen anymore, Dr. V. For me,
Okay.
because people, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free. A lot of folks here already know how to get in touch with me, have my phone number and the whole nine.
And if you all want to screenshot that, that is the
Yeah.
last slide. There's a bunch of risk language. And so if you want to see the full deck, that's on the Vesterr page as well. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you so much, Dr. V. So, so there's two things to this. It's a for us, by us. That's definitely aging myself, FUBU, right? Is the fact that where we have an opportunity to ensure that our money, our funds, our energies, our trust is shared, it's going to be with people who look like us, right? And that's the first out of the gate part. I am here because Dr. V, shot something, right? And Karen saw it too. We're in a particular group chat for our work that we do with Black women entrepreneurs. And Dr. V is like, who wants to come on with me? I'm like, sure. I don't even know what's going on, right? So I'm like,
She was just like that. She was like, I will support whatever it is. I can get the info and details later.
right,
So
which was like 10 minutes ago, right? Because that's me. But the point is, because I know that if Dr. V is putting her name on something, I know her well enough that I trust this process. And I know that her intentionality will be integrity, and that everyone involved will also have that level. So when she says she's on Vesterr, and I know what the work was, because none of us have heard of it, right? Has anybody heard of Vesterr? Right? We've heard of GoFundMe and we've heard of blah, blah, blah and other things, right? And that's the thing. We have to put in so much work to find us. Right. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you individually and collectively for taking time out of your day to be here, because it is not every day that there's an opportunity for us to come together and say, hey, let's raise money together. Let's invest in something. Let's have an opportunity to kick the tires, ask questions, learn more, see how you can do it yourself. So the fact that Dr. V took the additional intentionality to not just say, I'm going to go on whatever the lowest hanging fruit is, I'm going to be intentional and find a platform that's Black woman owned, that speaks, volumes to our time together and why I created her power space. Her power space was something that I thought about probably about 4 years before it opened, but my spirit knew like probably 10 years prior or 8 years prior. And so I was in Washington, D.C., practicing law when I transitioned into entrepreneurship in 2012. And at that time, WeWork and something called 1776, which was basically a co-working space. I mean, the date is 1776, right? So they didn't really think about us. It was very like beer keg, bro culture, dogs, all the stuff that a lot of Black people are like, you're bringing a dog to the office, get that thing away from me, standing on top of desks and stuff like that, right? So it was not a welcoming space, but you do what you got with what you got, right? And so I was very heavily involved with Lean Startup. I was in Lean Startup competitions. I was mentoring students who were participating in pitch competitions at Howard University, just really plugged in and trying to navigate what was then being called new media, Twitter, and I think we did Google Meet, right? We didn't even have Zoom yet. So we did these terrible Google Meets and just that cutting edge of what now we take for granted every single day. But in those spaces, I showed up because I knew there was work I needed to do, but I never felt comfortable there doing that work, right? And I don't know, you could raise a hand, send an emoji. How many of you have felt that, right? Where I'm pulled, I know that I have a gifting. I know that I have a purpose. I know that there's work I'm supposed to be doing, but the container I have to do it in is not welcoming, but I know what my purpose is, so I'm going to continue to show up. And so by the time I got down to South Florida, absolutely. Yes, Dr. V. Thank you. Dr. V is my cheering section. I don't know if the rest of y'all are still there, but we're gonna pretend you are. So when I got down to Florida, right, I again threw myself into just communities of Black women. I had already started the podcast. Her Power Hustle was the podcast. And right around the time I was about to move in 2015, I really went heavy on helping Black women entrepreneurs get access to social media, get access to one another, and connecting those dots. And in 2013, I hosted an episode of the Her Power Hustle podcast. And I'm going to send a link to everyone because even though it's 13 years later, the 2012 Jobs Act coming out of Congress incorporated verbiage that made it possible for us to invest without having to have $1 million of net worth and, $200,000 worth of annual income, et cetera, et cetera. And the
It was
reason that
very,
that's important is
yeah,
because that gave us access. And if you were here at the very beginning where I said being here with two hats on, that opened it up for us to invest, right? When Facebook was doing its fund and raise, a lot of us couldn't participate. I mean, we weren't necessarily connected, but even if we heard about it, our community generally doesn't have that level of net worth. So we're losing out on even being able to create generational wealth because we don't have the generational wealth to be able to invest to create more generational wealth. So with the 2012 Jobs Act, I brought on an expert on that and an expert on what was then, I think it was GoFundMe, it might have been GoFundMe, whatever. He raised a bunch of money. And so we talked about what power was now in our hand that we didn't have to be what was called an accredited investor to be able to earn from investing, right? And that's why, regardless of, I don't know a whole lot about them, but the guys from Earn Your Leisure have this thing called Invest Best, right? It's very recent for us on any level of global level to really be able to have the opportunity to invest. So when I opened Her Power space, it was to have brick, mortar, place that we could come together safely. So boom, I opened January 2020 and two things were happening. Of course, we know the pandemic was happening, right? But we also had Black Lives Matter. We had George Floyd happening. So within my space, we could host Powernomics. We read the Powernomics book, right? And we're like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Sound familiar for 2025, right? Where can we come together to be able to strategize And I'm also so the second thing I'm going to send you is a video snippet, and I'll send you if you want to watch the whole thing. There's a PBS special called Boss, and it's about the entire history in America of Black entrepreneurship and Black business. I mean, from before the Freedmen's Bank, like since our feet hit this soil, right? And so there's a part in there that talks about A.G. Gaston, who was at the time, he was a millionaire, right? He owned hotels and spaces and buildings and made it possible for Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson and those folks to come together and have a safe location. So when Dr. V talks about the Gullah Geechee, right? Family from Edisto Island, right? So we understand the
Yes.
Underground Railroad. We understand the importance of our culture and being able to have spaces where we don't have this gaze. Like we can't go anywhere without them calling the police or being mad because we're joyful. There was a Black Joy Festival last weekend. This chick comes in with her microphone talking about, so how do you feel if I talk about Donald Trump, right? You're coming into a space that's carved for Black joy to start shit, right? And so to me, it's the dirt, it's the ground, it's the bricks, it's the mortar. And while it doesn't always save us, we know Greenwood, we know, we know. It doesn't always
Mhm.
save us, but if we can make some kind of movement, right? Something that at least lets us know, hey, you're there, I'm here, we got each other, right?
Yeah.
So for me, her power space was that. And what was interesting was that because I had done so much work around bringing together women entrepreneurs, it's always been her power hustle, her power moves, and her power space, right? The power of women. And I'm a Black woman. So I never ever said the Black her power space or the her Black power space or never, right? However, white women consistently would reach out to me and say, is it okay if I come? Is it okay if I can be involved? Consistently. And I'm like, yeah, but understand that I center Black women and I am unapologetic about that. And I'm allowed to be unapologetic about it because it's my building, I pay the rent. Right? And so that feels really good too. There's that power, like you can come, but don't touch nothing, don't break nothing. If you do, you got to go. Right? And so her power space became this place that honestly, by the time I sent it, by the time I sold it, half of our mailing address customers were men. Right? So that's the other part that's so interesting is that when you create safe spaces, people act accordingly and they also want to be there too. And
Yes,
so
for
I think it's
allies.
really important to have these spaces, whether they're focused on entrepreneurship, focused on getting the hell out of the United States, whatever it is, right? To be able to have these spaces where we can come together and have conversations like this right now. Right?
Yeah.
Some of you know I'm not going to say the organization, but I currently am affiliated with an organization that I can't talk like this if I tell people I'm affiliated with that employer, right? But I know that this is so much more important to me that I don't care what my LinkedIn says. It doesn't need to say my current employer. What it needs to say is I'm Black, I'm Black, I'm Black, and come get on this Zoom live and learn how you can be part of something that you can feel, you can touch, right? And have ownership in.
Yeah.
And the last thing I think I was gonna say, if anybody has any questions, please. Oh, that's what it was. If anybody has any questions, I'm down. Like, take yourself off mute, ask questions. That's what we're here for. We want to hear what your goal was to come. We want to make sure that we address that, as well as any questions that have sparked from the conversation. The last thing I want to say is that her power space is a co-working space that has spaces within it. So office, podcast studio, conference room, event room. Every single space in her power space is named after a prominent Black woman, right? The main space, the largest space, is named after someone named Biddy Mason. Are any of you familiar with Biddy Mason? You can take yourself off mute and say yes or no. I'll just say, has anyone heard of Biddy Mason? You just say yes or no, or raise a hand for the yes. Yes,
No, I
Karen,
have
I
not.
love it.
I
Lawanda,
haven't.
I have
okay.
not.
Kiana has not. Lawanda has not. Jacqueline and Tawfiq Rahim. I'm going to tell you about her real quickly, and here's why. Biddy Mason, Biddy Mason was an enslaved woman who was also a midwife, a nurse, and long story short, the person who was the enslaver of her and her community of enslaved Africans on US soil, they went to a state that had slavery and then had them walk basically from Utah to California. California didn't have slavery. Biddy Mason, who again walked across the country, having her own children, delivering other people's children, got to California and were like, nope, we're free. And the enslaver tried to move them back quickly, and they sued, and she won. They all won their freedom. But not just that, what we now know as Los Angeles, which is probably another reason Karen knows who this is, was owned by Biddy Mason. She was a nurse. She had housing. She had a I don't want to call it a halfway house because that belittles it for probably the way we think about it, but a halfway house where people could come and get housing. She owned blocks and blocks and blocks of what is now called Los Angeles, California. Black woman, right? We don't learn this, but if you walked into her power space, you did, right? And so that space taught so many people that snippet, that ability to just cross the threshold and be like, one, it smells so nice in here, which was a trademark of mine. And the second was, who's Biddy Mason? I never heard of her. And everybody, Sojourner Truth, everyone's bio was on the wall. And the second one, the office was named after Janice Bryant Howroyd. And some of you may be familiar with her. Many people think that Oprah is the first Black woman billionaire, but it's actually Janice. Janice is the first Black American billionaire. And I had the pleasure of meeting her maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, June, July, and told her about her room in my space. She gave me a big kiss. It was just so beautiful. So we have this living history with us, the history, and the history we have now the opportunity to make. So I think that's all I have to say. I didn't really have notes except for like 2-3 things.
This is great. And Michelle and I, that was the other level that we connected on because I told her about my Lost Fortune series. So I put the link to the Biddy Mason article there. And Michelle was like, oh my gosh, of course I know Biddy Mason, who owned downtown Los Angeles. And the only thing they have that remembers her is the park, her name on one of the parks downtown. She was so much more than that. But if you look at the new LaVilla blog, it's all about Black women millionaires before the civil rights movement. There were many of us because I wanted to inspire all of us, with everything that's going on this year, that we've been there, done that. We don't need anybody, to, give us anything new. If you want to take it, fine, take it. We're just going to rebuild it again. So I just really wanted to inspire all of us to read those stories of those Black women, millionaires, moguls, before the civil rights era even started. They were already knocking it out of the ballpark. And Biddy Mason, I mean, she's the boss. Biddy Mason is amazing. So please, yeah, go to that series and look at that. That was my gift during Black History Month to Black women who, were part of the 92% and were just feeling rejected at that time. I want to also ask you to go back, Michelle, about the accredited investor. So Vesterr allows accredited and non-accredited investors on the platform. And this is great because of what Michelle said, because before you had to be an accredited investor to invest, and the Jobs Act changed all of that. So if you can talk a little about, you're the legal ease up here, just talk about that a little bit more, to let people know that the gate is wide open. Devon, when she founded this platform, had everyone in mind, accredited and non-accredited, because there's some platforms that will still only take accredited investors. She wanted everyone to have access.
So, I am a lawyer, but I am not your lawyer, and nothing that I say is to be taken as legal advice. If anybody tries to sue me, I will tell you it's on recording. This is not
Yeah,
legal.
and I'm not recording today. I forgot to, so I figured we were already in it.
So the
I have to make it up to you.
it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, so I don't know if people have specific questions. Because I don't want to go too in the weeds because I don't want anybody's eyes to glaze over. But the bottom line is that you now have the opportunity. Obviously, there is there I guess the biggest thing, the reason I was so giddy today and jumped out of the session, I like left the session because I was like, lady, I was talking about this 10 years ago. And I left in my head. I didn't say that. It was in my head. But what was fascinating to me is that she's talking to a room full of national business consultants working with small business owners. And it's like she just discovered ketchup or something, right? And I'm like, this is crazy because number one, so often our default goes to, nobody in my family wants to invest in me. I don't know, people, we've all seen the Facebook post, don't nobody buy my shit, da 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 da. And I'm like, they're not your customers, right? Dr. V talked about her ICP at the top. Everybody is not your customer, right? And so everybody shouldn't be buying from you. However, those of us who can should be allowed to. And previously, it was a protection put in place because paternalistically, our federal government felt that if you didn't have a certain level of wealth, you wouldn't be savvy enough and you'd get taken advantage of, right? By snakeskin oil salespeople because you couldn't navigate, and the big bad business would take advantage of the person who didn't make $200,000 a year and therefore didn't have the intelligence to tell a good investment from a bad investment. I personally have done friends and family as a round. I've never used a crowdfunding platform, but just if anybody cares, I'll just tell you a couple of different ways that I brought money in because, like I said, open during the pandemic. By October of 2020, I was $10,000 behind in rent because you can't pay rent if you can't sell anything, right? But I still had that lease. It was still there. And so a couple of things I did. I pitched. I've done pitch competitions to raise funds. And also I've done basically a convertible promissory note with a specific group of investors who believed in me, who I knew very well. A couple were customers of the space. And so the goal being that, for X percentage of the face value of the note, so they gave me the cash, I gave them a promise that I would pay that money back, either by a date certain or an activity certain. And at that time, they had the opportunity to choose to get the money back or reinvest it into the business. So I sold, so everybody got their money back with that percentage bump, right? But that made it possible. But because we don't always have access to this kind of information, now I'm putting back on now the entrepreneur hat, we drown, not realizing that it's not about posting on Facebook talking about buy my stuff, let me sell more. It's like, who do you know who's in your circle that you can put forth the business case for bringing in additional income into your business, to getting that investment money, right? And to getting that capital in, because we're a good investment. This is something I want to say, that I was in the session long enough today to hear this stat, and I thought it was extremely important. I see you got a question, Lawanda. So the average fail rate for a small business is 50%. 50% on average of all businesses fail, right? The average fail rate for a crowd-funded in this non-accredited way is 18%. Crowd-funded businesses that come out and do exactly what Dr. V is doing right now, actually have a higher success rate than just the average business. And I thought that statistic was fascinating. That statistic made it worthwhile for
Yeah,
me to be in the
I
room for
didn't know that, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, my position is, when you're asking people to, you have friends, family rounds, and, going into the angel investor rounds, when you're asking people to invest in you, you know that you have to make it work. You have to surround yourself with people who are going to give you the mentorship and the guidance. And so everybody that I've been talking to in terms of the platform, the attorneys, the account, everybody who is part of the team is overly qualified and highly qualified to make sure that this is a big success. What we're asking for now is we've done all the due diligence. We filed the SEC papers, everything is regulated. So that also gives us extra affirmation that we're on the right track. Now it's, okay, find your people, find your community. And that's where we're doing all of these seminars and all of these webinars to get the word out, because that's the piece that crowdfunding is also built around, is growing that community. And so you'll see a lot of the tech startups already have that community built. CRE crowdfunding is not quite as big of a word yet, but that's what we want to change. This is an opportunity to get ownership and equity back. It's not about it's someone else's business and you're going to cash out. It's about how can we continue to have long-term investments in these properties and bringing back these communities.
So Lawanda's question is the difference between an accredited investor and a non-accredited investor. And so an accredited investor, I'm putting it here. So accredited investors, the rule before the 2012 Jobs Act was that you had to have a net worth, and I'm going to mess this up, so don't hold me completely to it because I forget the numbers directly. But if you're single and married, the numbers change a little bit. But basically, you had to have a net worth of $1 million, not including your primary residence. So see right there, that takes us out, right? Because you could be in Bowie with a $1.5 million house and you got $3 in the bank, but you got this $1.5 million house and they'd be like, no, sorry, you can't invest, right? So you see where there's that block. And also you had to have annual revenue, I think, of annual income of $250,000, right? So you couldn't count your home. You had to be worth $1 million and you had to make at least $200,000 or $250,000. So only accredited people, meaning only people who fit those characteristics, were allowed to invest in non-publicly traded, right, opportunities. So Facebook before Facebook was Facebook, PayPal before PayPal was PayPal.
Yeah, and let me Google it real quick. It's 200. Your annual income is 200 for the individual. If you're married, it's 300. And then yes, it's $1 million excluding your primary residence. And so what happens now is the non-accredited investor is anyone that falls below that, but they still have protections. So if you're a non-accredited investor and you're interested in investing in the new LaVilla, they will still use that percentage. I can't remember what the percentage is for non-accredited. You can't invest more than a percentage of your income that they feel would put you at risk of, losing, whatever you have. So what we're doing now that we're realizing that there are a lot of non-accredited investors that don't have the 10,000 limit, but they want to give something, is looking at a different platform where it's $500, something smaller. So if you go and try to invest and find that whatever numbers you put in don't add up to the SEC's formula for non-accredited, just let me know.
And all of this is under the SEC, exactly,
Yeah.
what Dr. V said. And, you know, there's protection in there, right? But it's so
Mhm.
overly burdensome that it ends up excluding, many people who look like us from the
Yeah.
process.
And if you have an everyday job, I mean, there's no way that person with an everyday job until, you know, they start to get promoted, what, 3 or 4 times up is making, if you work for someone, if you're employed by someone, you don't have your own business, that's the situation most of us are in. They're not getting $200,000 unless they're, you know, how long do you have to work for the federal government before you start to bring home, you know, what is that level with the federal government? 13.
Oh, the GS-13 or
Yes,
GM-13
thank
or
you.
something like that.
GS-12,
15.
GS-13, and
Mhm.
that depends on where you are. And if you're GS-15, you're really up there. But I've seen those people when I worked for the DOD, they were working for the federal government forever. They weren't 13s making $200,000. So that just wiped out a lot of people's opportunity to invest. It was an exclusive club that the Jobs Act, you know, broke down.
And part of that is, you know, we also bought into buy your home. So it was almost like your home became a hindrance in terms of that ability to participate, which is where many of our wealth is for a
Yeah,
lot of people in our community. Our wealth is tied up in our primary residence.
that's it. So
So
we
what
are at the 8
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
go,
I was gonna
go ahead.
say, I know Kiana, you said you came on with a couple of questions where they answered because we are at the 8 o'clock mark.
They were. I probably will follow up later, just more about like the obtainable market and like what that looks like in Jacksonville specifically. But I feel like the slides were very well laid out and provided a lot of details. So
Yeah,
thank you for
thank you for
that.
that.
Mhm.
Um, oh, you're welcome. And if you have, so this is also about educating our community. So if you have any questions just generally about crowdfunding, investing, et cetera, and just want to drop on, you know, register for one of the one-on-ones. I've had many conversations with people who are just like, okay, I'm not there yet, but I do want to learn and start to plan around how I can start to invest and look at these opportunities with more intention. So please don't hesitate to sign up for a one-on-one with me if you want to talk more.
Yeah, so thank you. I hope this was helpful to people. I'm not sure, you know, what
It
brought
was
you
very
on.
helpful
But
and insightful and a great way to spend a Wednesday evening.
thank you for
Thank
being
you
here.
so
You could have
much for
been
sitting
anywhere in
with
the world,
us.
but you
I
were here with
know.
us.
With us. Thank you so very much for being here. Next week, we have Tamir, another co-working space owner in DC, Tamira Lucas, who did crowdfund for her space. So she's going to talk about that. Her space is still open. It's huge. Ours is 6,300 square feet. Hers is double that. So another opportunity to learn and to also engage with another co-working space owner / investor. She was up in Martha's Vineyard too, so I want to hear about that.
Oh yeah, you got to hear about that. Oh, fluffs. All right, everybody. It was so great. Dr.
Thank
V, thank you
you.
so much for the opportunity. Karen, I will not be there.
Karen.
But anyway, love y'all.
I'll be there, Karen. Thank you. Oh, thanks for coming on camera, Karen. I will see you next week. And thank you
Take
so
care,
much for
ladies.
being
This
here.
was
Thank
Take
great.
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Bye-bye. Bye, Lawanda.
Bye. I'd like to
Bye,
hear about the
Jacqueline.
DC event.
DC co-working space.
Yes, I'd like to hear about that event.
Well, yeah, she'll be with us next Monday, the 7th, next week. Tamira and her, I can't remember the name of her co-working space, but I'll send you, put your email in the chat. I'll send you the flyer for
Okay.
next week for her.
Okay. Okay. Let me check my calendar. I just remembered I think I have a board meeting.
And I will record it. I just forgot to record. I don't know how I forgot to record Michelle's. Now I feel like people are going to really miss out. Well, they are going to miss out. So I may have to get her to do something else for me and then we'll record it. But yeah, if
Okay.
you send it, just email it to me. I'll put my email in the chat
Okay.
and
All
I'll
right.
send you her graphic, Dr. Dunbar.
Okay. All righty. Well, I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Where are you calling from?
Maryland.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely you
Just
can use her
outside of
space.
DC. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Miss Las Vegas.
Yes, thank you. This was quite insightful. A lot of good information. So I'm
Thank you.
always, my ears are always open to new ideas, new entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah, start to really, look at this crowdfunding business and how you can leverage, your business or, acquiring some assets,
Mhm.
with community support. I mean, that's one of the things that we really miss out on is, I can't afford to develop this building downtown, but I can bring in other people like me who want to save our historic places and have community ownership in this property. Well, I own it. I just don't have all the money to develop this,
Right,
1.2 billion. I don't have that lying around.
right. Well, thank
Okay,
you.
so you're very welcome. We copy that. Have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go watch some tennis,
All right.
and I'll hopefully see you next week.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye bye.